Hey, wow, welcome to our episode of the Unredacted podcast. We're so excited to have you with us. We're going to be talking about caste and food and your page, The Big Fat Bow. So, firstly, can you just introduce yourself and your work?
Hi, Prerna. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is the Big Fat Bao. You can also call me Bao. My pronouns are she and her. I've been a graphic designer and illustrator for almost 5 years now. Uh, and scribbling is something that I used to do even as a kid. And somehow I decided that 2021 is going to be the year where I try and make the most of the scribbling that I do for a living. And I thought that instead of using Instagram as just a page where I put in some bits and pieces of the scribbling, I thought maybe I can give a hand at writing as well. Uh, and I started illustrating a lot of things that are close to me, that are very personal, and somehow that developed into something a little more significant than I imagined it to be.
Yes, thank you for your work. It's actually made me think so much over the past few months. And it has been an interesting journey to sort of see food from this very critical lens as well. Because I've also been studying food for a while, for very, very important learning experience for me personally. And I think culturally also, this is a very important conversation to have, and with the kind of beautiful graphics that you do, it just makes it so much more easier to like consume the information. Very like, thank you so much for the work that you do. If I can ask, how did you, why food, why have you chosen to share the political side of food?
Everything is political, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
every bit of us is political. So from roti kapra makan, if you pick roti, that is also political. And these are the three basic needs that we have in life. And where everyone perceives food as this unifying factor, as something that is personal, but not political. uh, I come from a place where, yes, it is personal, but it is also political. Because when somebody considers food as something that's not political, I think they come from a place of privilege for them to say that. And since I don't, I always looked at it from a very different angle. Like there's always politics associated with it, and so I thought that since the beginning actually of the pandemic, when the lockdown was issued, everyone was posting a lot of food, videos and pictures, and there was an entire culture that came into existence last year, which is the Instagrammable food, where you have people cooking all possible dishes, which usually one would not make at home. You get them in like restaurants, or cakes for that matter. It was usually done by bakers and big pastry shops. And so suddenly, with the onset of the pandemic and everyone being at home, the increase in the consumption of food visuals was something that I noticed. And in all of that, one important thing that was missing was the politics of food. Like, right from who makes the ingredients to what ingredient is used, to who uses what kind of ingredients and what kind of equipment or vessels. all of these things matter, right? And when I realized that most of the food that I grew up eating was absent in all of this, I thought that maybe I should revisit my childhood, and try and understand as to why this is happening.
Right.
And
Right.
that took a while, and so this year I took some time off and made a lot of notes, called up my mother, and asked her about her experiences when she was a child, and documented all her stories, all my stories, and this is now an ongoing project.
That's a beautiful effort at archival, especially of your childhood, because storytelling is such an important means and method to carry on a certain sort of conversation, and especially political when it comes from a personal place, and that's actually really nice.
My grandmom taught me how to cook. So Aji would patiently teach me how to, what is the right way to cut vegetables. She would give me these tips and tricks as to, how to save gas, to cook, for the food to cook faster so that you can save gas, how to cook rice and dal in the cooker with less steam, as in less heat. So a lot of jugards, a lot of tips and tricks that she taught me. And my mom, like, sort of, because of her intercaste marriage with my father, she sort of developed a very mixed taste in food because of the patriarchy at home. Unlike my Aji, so I always prefer my Aji's food over my mother's food, because
Oh,
Aji will cook. She cooks like the best fish fry. Uh, and also chicken. So, but I'm not that fond of chicken. I prefer fish fry the most. But,
oh,
so when I travel to, like, the interior Maharashtra, I sort of find it difficult because there a lot of groundnut is used in cooking.
right.
So yeah, so it's because I definitely love the food that they cook. But after a point I miss coconut.
Oh, that makes sense. There's a lot of people that have very strong opinions on coconut.
I get that a lot. Oil. So even in this, the basic ingredient, which would be something as simple as oil, cooking oil, uh, is also political, right? Because you want to use oil that is healthy. You want to use oil uh, that is not quote unquote smelly,
Mm-hmm.
and so all of these things again are like political when it comes to
Right.
every ingredient that matters for a particular
Right.
dish.
True. You mentioned your mother's intercaste marriage, and you prefer your grandmother's cooking over her. So, if we can talk about identity and how um, identity sort of manifests in food, if you could talk about that a little bit.
When someone says, what kind of food do you like,
Mhm.
we as Indians immediately will think of, like, if a foreigner, say for example, asks what kind of food do you like, we say, yeah, we like our curries, or yeah, we like South Indian food, or we like butter chicken. But what most people fail to understand is that food always comes with identity. And for Dalit communities, there's no such thing as Dalit food,
Mhm.
because there's no such thing as Dalit culture. Like,
Right.
because food is such a important part of culture, right? And because we don't have a standardized culture, or we don't have a homogenized culture which we can say that it is ours. We just eat whatever is available. We just eat whatever we can source.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a part of our identity. Like, we eat whatever we get.
Mm-hmm.
We eat whatever we can source, and we eat whatever uh, is left over. So the leftover part is also important.
Yes, yeah.
So that's where our identity is.
Mhm.
Like when it comes to food.
Hmm. True. Yeah. In like in temples, and if you do go to Brahmin people's houses, if you end up leaving any food on your plate, it is considered like disrespectful. And food is a very pure and it's a pure thing, and it's a blessing to be there on your plate. So the idea to not waste anything also, I think, has a very casteist way of approach.
Yeah, but that also, like in my personal opinion, that has also come from a place where they didn't want to spare anything for us.
Right.
So you finish everything that's on your plate so that there's no leftover for you to pass on to somebody else.
Yes. True.
I
Yes.
think it comes more from there than from, worshipping something on your plate, and or from an angle of disrespect. Because if you see the consumption of meat that happens in upper caste families,
Mm.
there isn't a lot of freedom that they have,
Mm.
because they eat only few certain parts of say an animal,
Mm.
which is like a standardized thing that's there. So motha mutton is what we call it, like the expensive meat that is there, or the bigger meat that is there, which is mostly consumed by non-vegetarian upper caste people. But also, it is not consumed every day. Like, they have their restrictions. Like, you can't eat on a particular day because it's some god's day, whatever.
Mm. Mm.
Whereas for us, everything that is discarded from that animal, right
Mm.
from the brain to the hooves to the tail,
Mm.
uh, we consume all of that, and
Right.
we don't have a particular day or something. So that, again, everything that's discarded,
Mm.
which is their waste,
Mm.
is our food.
Right. Right. Um, all right. So in when food is this, and this is what it means to you and your family, um, how how have how have you reacted to the idea of veganism that is being sort of taken over in India, especially during the lockdown? There were a lot of people trying to eat healthy and like healthy in quotes, and they started preaching this healthy living where meat was hard to source. So like veganism became a huge thing during lockdown. So basically, what has been your reaction to the conversation around veganism online?
Most of the vegans hate me, I must say that, because I keep telling people that, plant-based food is not the only source of nutrition
Mhm.
that is there. One, and two, if that was the case, then indigenous communities across the world would have embraced veganism ages ago,
Right.
and they know the consequences of this kind of a diet. Now, veganism has, uh, it's not just a diet. it comes from a place of extreme privilege. One, two, nobody talks about the environmental impact of veganism. Now, on one hand, you have, the whole non-violent approach and animal rights movement linked to veganism. But what people fail to understand is that when you opt for something as dangerous as veganism, you are also increasing your carbon footprints way more than you would eat even like vegetarian food, for lacto ovo vegetarian food for that matter, because you're going to start using a lot more soy products. You're going to start using a lot more of fruits and vegetables and crops, grains, cereals, for example, which are not indigenous to your land. So for you to have like almond milk in the morning or whenever, a whole lot of land is going to get destroyed for growing almond. Like it, and the amount of water that is required for agriculture is so much more, so much more. So these are the consequences that people never really discuss, and then these are the points that are put forward, which I feel are very logical. Vegans don't seem to understand that. They also don't seem to understand that most tribal and indigenous communities in the world consume meat in a very sustainable way. You kill a cow or you kill a pig and let most of it go to waste. The entire animal is consumed by the entire community. So when you have when you already have sustainable practices that are being followed by indigenous communities, or in the case of the Bahujan community, for example, if for Bahujan communities, we don't really have access to any of these. So whatever little nutrition that you get in the form of the leftover of the meat that you from upper caste people that have already consumed it, why are we being denied that also? So these are so veganism is not just diet. It's so much more than that. It's very political, and people don't really understand it.
Right.
Like I've never seen non-vegetarian people, go on campaigns. It's always the vegans who do it,
Yeah.
and it's always the vegans who force veganism onto people.
Yeah.
Meat eaters are happy in their life.
There definitely seems to be a very violent relationship between caste and food. Consequence of this, as you have also spoken about in on your page, is hunger. And as you've already mentioned, that it is usually the waste that ends up becoming the source of nutrition for the Dalit Bahujan community. If you could talk about nutrition a little bit, and what his access to food and water looked like. And yes.
So nutrition was something that we never really knew that such a thing existed, because we first of all we never had access to food to begin with in the first place, right? With the different levels of untouchability that have been persistent for centuries, understanding that nutrition plays an important role in one's life itself is such a big thing. So when upper caste people and organizations that they run consistently make sure that we are denied even like something very basic as drinking water. So then how do we even know that that food and nutrition and healthcare are linked.
Mm-hmm.
And time and again, studies have failed to include caste as a parameter to understand the consequences of lack of food, like lack of certain food groups in children. For example, there are a few state governments and NGOs that provide midday meals to school children, but they provide just vegetarian meals. A, the quality of those meals, nobody really checks. B, there has not been proper study to show that for children between certain age groups, that this sort of food is sufficient for their overall physical and mental growth, because these studies don't involve caste. Now, if there are upper caste children of the same age who go to like schools, and they have their own tiffin box and everything, their parents make sure that their nutrition and their growth is taken care of. But for Dalit communities, parents themselves are daily wage workers, and so they send the kids to school with the hope that okay, at least one meal they will get in school, and so they don't have to work. They can study and they will get a meal in school, but nobody checks on what kind of food they're getting, how much food they are getting. In fact, I was very surprised that there were many people who DM'd me on Instagram when I had posted about this, saying that I feel ashamed that my Brahmin parent, who is a teacher in one of the government schools, used to bring back home dabbas of food, of like dal and rice, like dabbas, 3-4 dabbas of food back home, so that she didn't have to cook once she got back home.
Oh my God.
So this is the institutional oppression that happens towards Dalit children. And then the other aspect is excluding food groups, which is something as simple and basic as eggs. Now, as it is, meat is a very controversial topic in India. And on top of that, not everybody has access to plant-based protein, right? So a cheaper and more healthier source of protein is an egg. When this itself, children who are in the age group of say 5 to 8 or 9, when they require, it's a bodily requirement, right? Like you need good food for your physical growth and your mental growth. When such food groups are denied to children, the ultimate result is nothing but stunted growth or malnutrition. So even when we compare kids from upper caste families of the same age to Dalit children, there is such a big difference. Big difference. And it's actually very sad that this is not new. This is not something that I am talking for the first time. This has been going on for years and years, and sadly, the health ministry and policy makers and researchers who focus on children's nutrition and well-being, they've conveniently, discarded caste as one of the key parameters to understanding how nutrition plays a role in the development of children.
The hunger seems to be institutionalized at almost every level, from at a policy level, at an academic level, and at a legal level as well. I was looking through some statistics, and this is something that was really shocking, is that over 94% of the children in government schools who come from scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward communities, about 43.8% of the children who are under 5 years of age are malnutritioned and underweight. And it's a really shocking um, statistic for a country like India that seems to, on the face of it, want to not be associated with caste atrocities, and it seems to be doing a lot. But there is so much institutionalized casteism in through food that is leading to lack of nutrition, and right to health and food, which is a legal right, is sort of completely diluted over. Um,
It
yeah.
is straight away denied because, most of these institutions which are run by Savarnas, upcaste people, they want us to remain hungry. They
Mm-hmm.
want to deny us the basic right to water, food, nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
and they work in the most seamlessly, harmless ways, where if you look at it from the outside, one would think that, okay, like there are a lot of policies, there's a lot of research being done, there's a lot of development happening, a lot of programs, government programs are or schemes are available. uh, so superficially it seems like uh, you know the country is making progress, but uh, once you understand that there is something missing in all of this, and that one thing that's missing is caste, is when you realize that these policies don't really work. In fact, they they do the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
They literally do the exact opposite by not including garlic, by not including onions, by not including eggs, by not including meat. Uh, More importantly, what these policies fail to to do is, approach the problem, because they don't want to approach the problem. Basically, they just want to show that, we are doing something. But if the problem of hunger and malnutrition and stunted growth in children has to be eradicated, one has to look at it in a very holistic way.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a community which is, say, from the west coast of India, say
Mm-hmm.
in Goa or in Maharashtra, their food habits will be different from the food habits of a Dalit community, say in the central Indian landscape, or in Rajasthan,
Mm-hmm.
or in Tamil Nadu, for example. And so, if more attention is given to the requirements, the nutritional requirements of keeping these communities at the center, that is when something, fruitful will come out of all of this money that is going into research and education and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Till then, I don't see how the Bhujan community can ever gain like complete access to food, water, drinking water, and nutrition.
I think culture has had a huge role to play in this, because in the collective memory or conscience of the entire nation, food is just seen to be as food, and nobody sort of really thinks about what is political about food. Also, because culturally we do not see a lot of representation of foods from Dalit communities and from other DBA communities. I think the only thing I've ever seen is Gordon Ramsay eating the red ant chutney for, I think, a BBC documentary. I'm not sure. But I think apart from that, there hasn't been much cultural representation.
But again, the lens with which Gordon Ramsay comes is very different.
True,
The
true.
lens with which we want our food habits or our food uh, to be recognized, like
Hmm.
it's not a homogeneous thing.
Hmm.
So where you have Adivasis and other indigenous communities with their specific food culture, uh, when you have all when you have upper caste people coming into to these communities to study, to research, to understand, the lens with which they look at us is from a very it's like we are placed in a petri dish and they're examining us from a microscope.
Right.
We don't want to be a data set. Our food is not a data set.
Hmm.
Our culture is not a data set.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if the same researchers or scientists in food and nutrition reflect back on their own practices which have been oppressive, I think it will make a very big difference, where they will then try and understand that a lot of things are missing
Hmm.
in the food that we eat. I want to know what is missing and why it is missing.
Yeah.
That's when we will probably start getting like a little bit of representation for our individual communities. And I think that is more important, because uh, for if you see, for most Dalit Bahujan communities, uh, meat is a primary source of food.
Hmm.
In some communities which live close to forest areas, for them, plant-based food is a better source of nutrition for them.
Hmm.
But again, none of these foods uh, are popular, or nobody really understands why we eat what we eat.
Hmm.
And a lot of our foods are also looked at from a very racist and casteist perspective. So one, I mean, if that is targeted, if that is reflected upon, I think slowly that's when representation for our communities will begin to grow.
All right. Okay. So we were talking about food snobbery and sort of imposing a cultural hierarchy through food. And this has brought us to the very controversial and politically charged topic of the beef ban. So, yes.
I personally eat beef. I love it,
Mhm.
uh, especially beef roast. But I want people to reflect on the power of Brahminical culture in the country, to understand that it literally banned one food group for not just one community,
Mhm.
but several communities all at the same time.
Yeah.
And just reflect and understand the magnitude of this power. and and if it has done this for like one food group, I want people to understand that we have been at the receiving end of this oppression when it comes to something as simple as drinking water for centuries.
Mhm.
And so when people say that, you know, no, it's 2021, caste does not exist, understand the reason behind this beef ban. Like, what power lies behind this decision?
Mhm.
And then, we can think of why this was banned, how this was banned, and all the other things. Now, there was a time when upper caste Hindus and some Brahmin communities did eat beef.
Mhm.
There has been like evidence to suggest that they were beef consuming communities, but that is what power does to you, right? Like when you have the ultimate power, how do you misuse it? How do you prove your supremacy? These are the ways in which you do it, by denying things to other people.
Mhm.
And this has led to so much violence. The lynching of people is like, it's now more clear and more visible,
Mhm.
uh, because because of the internet, because of better connectivity, because of something quickly coming up on the news.
Mhm.
But this has been going on for ages,
Mhm.
and it's always covered up with something insignificant, like it could be like a thievery story to cover this up, or uh, something like that, or a revenge story to cover this up. But this has always been the case, and this is what systemic uh, oppression is, because it comes straight from a government that is Brahminical.
Mhm.
And so even if you say that no, Hindu, this is a part of Hindutva and not Hinduism,
Mhm.
both are the same.
Mhm.
Both are literally the same.
Yeah.
It's just that one is more uh, more open about it,
Mhm.
and the other is selective about what they like about Hinduism. So
Um,
they have that privilege to uh, choose the things that they like about Hinduism,
mhm.
but they fail to understand that both are equally oppressive. That it is, the religion is oppressive.
Yeah, this is something Ambedkar also has spoken about, that Hinduism itself is an oppressive structure, and the only way to sort of um, like break this is to sort of shift to Buddhism and like leave behind Hinduism
Yeah,
altogether. So
yeah,
and yeah, it's sort of imposing a moral or an ethical lens on killing animals and equating it to the kind of humans they are just because of the kind of food that they consume, and making vegetarianism the purest form of diet that a superior mind can have. And all of this is very sarcastic and in quotes. Um, so,
yeah. So the privilege here one should identify is that they have the privilege to criminalize people for the food choices that they make, or the in our case, in the case of Dalits, it's not even a choice. It's it's just what has been given to us. So now in that also, if you're denied that particular meat, then what is left for us to eat?
you've spoken about cooking out of waste, like on YouTube, and how that is itself is also a privileged act. It's sort of the deaf to the conversation around caste and food in that sense. And that was a very interesting point that you mentioned on your page there. And I also, this another thing that you mentioned is about casteism in digital spaces, is that when we're ordering on Zomato or Swiggy, the option of choosing vegetarian food separately. So if we could talk more about that, so a form of digital casteism there.
Now, waste is are like, we don't look at anything as waste. Like, if it can be, if the rest of a particular food can be eaten, like a simple example would be a watermelon. Now, if the flesh of the watermelon can be relished, uh, why can't the tough outer skin be used? Why does it have to be discarded? So in my family, at least, like, most of the things are consumed with the skin. Like, whether it is watermelon or sometimes mangoes. I am a little picky, like, but most of the things that, even potatoes, for example, when you're making a bhaji, people wash it, then peel it, then cut it. We just wash it and we cut it. So when I found these videos on Instagram and YouTube about making food from discarded vegetable waste or whatever, I was really surprised. In fact, last year I had been to a restaurant in Goa. I used to live there, and I went to this restaurant, and they were selling potato skins, fried potato skins, for I think 250 rupees for that dish, and I was shocked. I was like, how can you charge so much for potato skins, which are nothing but fried and seasoned?
Yeah.
This is the audacity that, upper caste people have, when you take this so-called discarded or waste product, and then you sell it at this, massive price, and people are amazed at it. They're like, oh wow, we've never had potato skins. So when Savarnas do this whole fancy schmancy, I like to call it, with their videos and lighting and everything of making some particular dish out of discarded ingredients, it's very surprising, because it shows how they can capitalize on everyday things which are literally of no significance as such, but they manage to do that also. And if you go to bookstores like Blossom, or if you go to any of these big bookstores where food related books are available, these beautiful, hardbound cooking books, you will definitely find one on fast cooking, or that is like one pot cooking, as they like to call it nowadays. And you will also find one with this where you cook from, like, waste or discarded ingredients.
Yeah.
And I just am, I'm amazed that how they romanticize uh, the same thing that, they have been giving us, because they felt it beneath them to eat.
Yeah.
So uh, I don't know if you know of this, but for a very long time Swiggy and Zomato delivery persons have been oppressed by both these companies for a very, very long time now,
Yeah.
especially during the pandemic. They've literally been treated like slaves. And the app itself is of course, it's a very huge privilege, right? To own a smartphone and then order food uh, on like an app and then get it delivered to your doorstep. But when you see the food options, uh, the first preference on top will be given to vegetarian food. You have like a exclusive option, filter option there just for vegetarian food.
Yeah.
So you understand where the supremacy of vegetarianism is coming. It's subtle, very subtle, but
Yeah.
it is there in the user interface. So when people say that no, there's no caste in like the corporate world, or there's no caste in like on the internet, this is where it is. This is where
Yeah.
privileged people fail to see it.
Yes.
Because when I open Zomato or Swiggy on my phone, that's not the first thing that I want to see there. I don't want to see like only veg options. I want to see what I would like. I want to see all the meat options that are there for me. Why should the app, make me type the particular, meat that I want?
Yeah.
Why can't it? So when you use uh, user experience principles, Gestalt laws for designing the wireframes of these apps, right? There again, the question of caste is missing. There again, the question of religion or race is missing. Because that's not what is given priority. What is given priority is that, oh no, majority of the people in this country are vegetarian. Nobody has been able to prove that India is a vegetarian country. Is the user interface of these two apps, which are the two biggest food delivery services in the country, Brahminical in their design, and nobody seems to question this.
Yeah.
So when I wrote about this, a lot of designers then, who in fact work for Swiggy, asked me that, how would you do it? I mean, you did speak about how it is Brahminical. So how would you change the design? I said, look at your team of designers and design researchers and user interface designers and developers. These are four teams that are there, which help in designing of an app or a website. So I just simply asked them, how many Dalit or Adivasi people are there in your team? And if I was to design this, I would keep local communities in mind. I would keep local food in mind. Yeah, because the amount of carbon footprints you increase, because you have to import avocados from Mexico
Yeah.
to use it here, that travels so many miles and comes here. Kiwis take so many miles and comes here. Imagine the level of inclusivity and job opportunities these two companies would be generating if only they were more understanding of what truly is food. Instead of sending us notifications every 1 hour about, oh, it's Zomato hour, or oh, it is Swiggy hour for like
Yeah.
ice cream or whatever it is. Just think for a moment and reflect as to what if I'm able to get local farmers or local tribal food, for example, food that tribal people would like to consume or whatever it is, and for some reason, because it could be either because of climate change or it could be whatever reason, or they've moved to the city for employment. And what if their food is available for them. Like my staple food is not maa ke haath ka dal chawal. And this romanticization of maa ke haath ka khana, no. Why tumhara father ka haath ka khana, and why is it not there? Just again proves Brahminical patriarchy so dominant in the digital space, and nobody seems to talk about it.
True, true. It's almost like the digital equivalent of is that they have separate messes where it's like veg people eat separately and non-veg
Yeah,
messes are separate, and it's a
yeah.
huge deal if like the utensils get mixed up.
Mixed up. Big offices
Mm-hmm.
have these policies.
Yeah.
Huge, big, multi-dollar companies, they have these policies.
Mm-hmm.
Big restaurants have these policies where the entire kitchen for vegetarian food is different. I really someday would like to visit a restaurant where I get my food, which is not a Brahminized version of my food.
Mm-hmm.
Like someday I would like people from my community who love to cook and who are good cooks to be able to start their own restaurant somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
Just have a small message for, especially for people who are in academia,
Mm-hmm.
and upper caste people, especially who are in academia, to not do their PhDs and their masters on us or about us.
Mm-hmm.
It should be about how your religion, about how your caste is oppressive, and what your caste or your religion has been uh, denying us for. How if changes in the mindsets happen in your caste or in your community, will there actually be some progress for us? Especially with like healthcare, when we have doctors, where we have nutritionists, where we have uh, dietitians and whatnot. Nowadays, there's the whole trend of eat local, think global
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
What is this local? Where are you sourcing it from? Who is the one who is making it?
Mm-hmm.
Romanticizing farming is a typical Brahminical thing to do. A very typical Brahminical thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because A, you have land, B, you have resources.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, whatever is local, you've made it extremely expensive now for us. A simple example is nathani or ragi. I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a point in time when millets, all possible millets, jwari, bajri, nathani, uh, all of these were very cheap
Mm-hmm.
because they were not the sexy cereals that people would like to have. They
Yeah.
are rough in texture. They require very less water to cultivate. They're not very rich, so to speak. It's so a bhakri is not your uh, uh, paratha equivalent. It's nowhere in the paratha race or the roti race because it does not require oil at all.
Mm-hmm.
It just requires water. And it's rough in texture. It's extremely nutritious because I've grown up on that. We've eaten like one large bhakri with mirchi and kanda, onion and
Mm-hmm.
green chilies.
Mm-hmm.
That is all that comprises of a meal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to bite. Like you have to keep on biting it to, soften it. It's not like chapati, or it's not like your aloo paratha, which is like ekdam ghee se moisturize kiya hua,
Yeah.
and with dahi and achar and different chutneys that are there.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the most humble roti that you can ever find on this planet. But it's tough, it's rough, it's very chewy. So it's not very sexy to be photographed for Instagram also.
Okay. Yeah.
And uh, when nutrition doctors and everyone uh, started this whole trend of eat local, think global, so then you have these quote unquote superfoods coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And superfoods are ragi. So now you find ragi dosa, so many things you will find which have ragi in it.
True.
And now because of that, so they upper caste, what they have done is they have generated a massive demand for this. Now if you increase the demand, automatically something that was very affordable for us is suddenly not no longer affordable for us. It is literally equivalent to wheat and rice, which will be in the range of 40 to 50 rupees a kilo.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how they've monopolized even on that, and they've made sure that we don't have access to even this, like whatever little was there for us. So academia, doctors, nutritionists, everyone, they have to take accountability for this oppressive behavior. Till then, we will keep fighting. We will keep talking about our food. The change will only happen once upper caste people stop talking about us and researching on us and reflect on their practices.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. Thank you so much for your time, and for all your work that you do. I intend to keep learning from this page. I think mostly unlearning also. So thank you so much. I hope that
Thank you for calling me.